Welcome, folks, to episode 195 of the Morgue, the official CorpseFeed podcast. I am Arturo Padilla, the guy behind the face, and with me always is Mr. Nick Valdez. Tex, how are you, my man? How are you today? What's
Oh
going on,
man,
man?
howdy everybody. Howdy Arturo. We're getting into a little like heavy stuff later in the episode, a little bit of violence. So let's start off a little light this week with coming attractions. Let's start on the other end of the
A little
spectrum.
violence and a lot of walking, but yeah.
Yeah. So let's start off with on the other end of things. With we got the first trailer for Moana 2. Now, Moana 2, it is in a funny predicament, right? So this was originally meant to be like a Disney Plus show, and then whatever like Disney like looked at it, whatever in the production were like, oh, we can turn this into like a movie, because as we know, Disney didn't really have anything set for like this year, like because of all the strikes and
right?
yeah, yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh, you like money too? Yeah, I like money. Yeah, and so here we are. This one really doesn't tell us much outside of the fact that like, it's a little bit later. It's like I don't know, maybe a couple years, I guess. Like that's
Yeah, she looks a tad older, not as much as I'd expect, but again, like as you just mentioned, it is a show that was not meant to be seen on a big screen, right?
yeah,
So this is like me and Tex were talking about it off air. It's like those Disney home videos, right? That we
yeah,
used to have back in the day, like the Simba's Pride stuff, the Lion King 1.5s,
yeah,
right? The Little Mermaid 3 or 4, whatever. You know what I mean? Like all those ones that went straight to home video. This was probably the same kind of vibe. This teaser trailer is exactly what that is, a teaser to just tell us there's a Moana movie coming, but there's not much in there. I'm curious to see what they have in mind, because the first Moana is absolutely amazing, and it would really suck to find out that they just rush this out just to kind of just to make some money. I think it would kind of ruin that legacy and aura of the first Moana, to be honest with you. So let's
yeah.
see what happens.
No, I totally agree, because that's kind of like what the deal is with the first one too, because it's kind of like a self-contained story, right? It's not a movie, it's not a universe kind of movie. It's not a thing where you see it and you're like, oh man, I would love to see more
Yeah,
Moana's
exactly.
world,
Yeah,
right? Like it's just
exactly.
kind of like
I'm like, you
this
live
was
on an island. Like, this is pretty much it.
yeah,
Sea
it,
island.
yeah, when the island of Tahiti, or to the heart of Tahiti, or whatever it was,
Yeah.
like whenever they settled that was kind of it, right? And when it ended, you're like, oh, that was a nice little time, let's rewatch it again. And so you watch the first one tons of times. And the thing with this one is like Lin-Manuel Miranda is not doing the songs for this one. He's not involved at all. So that's one of those
Ouch.
other things too, where it's like, oh no,
Because
because
again,
it's like,
it was a TV thing,
yeah.
as you just
So,
said.
and and you kind of see it with the visuals too. Like I didn't want to be outright about that, where it's like, because it's only a teaser, so it's like, maybe the whole thing will look better. But that first Moana movie, man, had some really
Gorgeous.
good looking stuff in
Gorgeous.
it, right?
Yeah, very
Yeah, so
gorgeous.
it's
Gorgeous
and
water, all
and
that
here
stuff.
we are, and they're doing a live action one eventually too. And
Uh,
this is all like tying into whatever's going on with Disney
Listen,
too, because like,
I don't know. I just want a Moana musical on Broadway. That's it. Just give me that, and I'm
yeah,
good. You can make mad money off of that. And you'll
yeah,
be
like imagine them doing the whole like making that crab. What was the crab's name? Like Tamatoa or
Tamatoa.
something? Yeah, like just doing that on the stage. That'd be dope. But
Imagine
no,
getting
like,
Jermaine Clement to actually voice it for the song, for
yeah,
their first
why
run on
not? Right?
Broadway. I'd be, dude, take my money right now. I'd be
Yeah,
so down for that. Legit. My son would
yeah,
just flip out. He
yeah.
loves
Because like,
Tamatoa.
yeah, and that's all the thing with like, because Pixar is saying weird stuff too. Like, the boss of Pixar saying that like there was a quote going around recently where they're saying that they want to do less director led stories because they don't appeal to the masses, which is like some weird thing, because
Huh?
he was specifically like, they were specifically talking about like Luca and Turning Red, which are good movies. It's
Yes,
just
very good movies actually.
it's just they
With
were Disney Plus. Like it was
dude,
during the
very
pandemic,
good
right? Like,
movies with crazy rewatchability. Like,
yeah,
my kids put on Luca every once in a while and Turning Red, and then the music in Turning Red, it's like super addicting. Like Billie Eilish did a great job with that music. Like those movies are good, and those were the highlights. of their catalog during that time, especially after the pandemic and once like theaters started reopening a little bit, because Luca was a Disney Plus and so was Turning Red. And these things actually were like legit, really good stories. I don't know why you would go away from that. That is what is making Pixar different, you know? Like, why, like, what you want to make like inanimate objects talk all the time? You know, like, come
Yeah.
on.
And there were reports too about them wanting to reboot Finding Nemo and like Toy Story and stuff like and that's the thing. It's like, why? Like, and
Listen, I'm done with Toy Story, bro.
yeah,
Tired
dude,
of Toy Story. Let those toys just like go to the antique shop and just rest, please.
dude. Especially after seeing 4, right? You watch 4 and you're like, yo, this is so forced. Like, it felt forced
Especially
because
after 3 was so good, right?
yeah,
And then you got
3 had that perfect ending, right? 3 had
oh
that
my
perfect
god,
ending.
dude.
Like, it was kind of like, yes, I see why they're ending this. And is it our fault you never figured out how to like just turn that into a different kind of franchise, right? Where it's like you had to do direct sequels, you couldn't figure out how to like spin off anything
If
or
anything,
whatever.
like, because you remember back in the day, again, this is how things work better with the animation. ABC Studios, right? Like they did a Toy Story, like a cartoon back in the day, and
Yeah.
it was fun. That was a fun show.
Yeah, and
Like
it's like you couldn't figure out how to do that, you
put
know?
that on Disney Plus, you know? Like they're freaking toys. You know the amount of crazy things you can do with these things?
Yeah.
Like just put that stuff on Disney Plus, get them into crazy wacky adventures, have the kids love them. You can sell tons of merch like that, but just
Yeah.
stop making movies.
Yeah, and
Please.
it's so weird because it's like, why would you reboot Finding Nemo when you know you have Incredibles sitting right there? Incredibles was like, yeah, people didn't like part 2 or whatever for whatever reason, but it's
I don't
also
know why
like,
not. It was good.
yeah, if you talk a franchise you have that's perfect for sequels, you have Incredibles, right? You have Incredibles, you have like I would take a Turning Red too, you know what I mean? Like I would like
Yeah.
let it play around in that little mystical world again, you know? So it's like it's stuff like that where it's so disheartening, right? To hear like the people at top being like, oh well, we don't want to tell director led stories,
I
which
would
is
wanna
so
dude, I would
it's
love to
so
see
weird, right?
a
Because
Luca
Pixar
2.
is
Dude, it
yeah,
just imagine a Luca 2, him going to school now, a whole new adventure
yeah,
there. Like, dude,
yes,
it's there. Like, oh my
dude.
god, Tex.
And
Frustrating.
it's so disheartening because Pixar made its name off of like these personal stories, right? Where it's like, yeah, we cared about toys because it was like this director story, like it was this personal story of like change and like you know
And
like
up
you,
and leaving toys behind, leaving
yeah,
childish things behind, as they say in themes and all that stuff,
yeah,
you know. But
like yeah,
again, like it's
it's such a bummer, dude. It's such a bummer.
yeah, Disney really has to get their, their ish together because
Yeah,
um
figure it out. Yeah,
their catalog has not been that great as of late. So they've been banking on profitability for Marvel and Star Wars, merchandise and IPs and stuff like that. So let's get the stories back in Disney, folks, right? Because this is why Disney became a thing, because of the stories, right?
yeah,
Come on,
and it,
folks.
yeah, and
Jesus.
that kind of ties into the next thing. So if was kind of like a different company trying like a kid story with like imaginary friends, and you got to see it recently, so I just wanted to get your thoughts on it here, just so we have it for the
Yeah.
record for the morgue for the buddies at
Just
home.
like it was fine. Like I was definitely not the target audience for a movie like that. My kids enjoyed it. They liked all the different characters. I think they did a great job animating those different characters. They did a good job having the live action and the CG there. So the money well spent.
Right.
The story is a little it's it's fine. It's very simple. I do wish they would have gotten a little bit more intricate with stuff, but I guess, John Krasinski didn't want to get too crazy with things. Like his theme gets proved pretty much. You know what I mean? Like he gets his point across just fine with the movie. his message and all that stuff. He gets all that across just fine.
So what it's sounding to me like a total wait for it, more so maybe even stay away from it. Maybe like
it's
you're
a
not
wait
losing
for it.
out.
It's a wait for it because there are some moments there that are fun for the kids and the family. But like the basic gist of the story is that like right off the bat, a little girl loses her mother, which I think they could have done a better job at getting more emotion out of that. And then you see time lapses. You don't even know how long. She's older now. And now John Krasinski, who plays her father, now he's sick somehow. You don't know exactly what he has. He says he has a broken heart and all this other stuff. He's a very lighthearted, whimsical kind of character. But I just feel like, they could have done a little bit more development in terms of making the characters deeper, but that's just me being picky. The kids liked it, and that's really all I care about because I took the kids for it. I took the kids to get them out of the house,
Right.
So
it was
they enjoyed
either
it.
that or Garfield, right? So
I wasn't watching
guess,
Garfield.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah,
I was not watching. Dude, I was not watching Chris Pratt voice another CG character.
This is like I guess you picked the right one. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
because imagine watching Garfield. You're like, wait a minute, that sounds like Mario.
Yeah, it's a you know what, like I'm underselling it a little bit because it wasn't really my thing, but it was a cute little story. It does have its emotional beats later on that like you're like, oh, okay. It's more like, so this little girl has to just
fine.
It's fine. This little girl has to, be matchmaker to these like imaginary friends who've been forgotten and stuff. So you can just imagine what can happen with that kind of story.
Right.
But
you can imagine it.
fun.
Yeah.
But anyways, moving right along.
Moving along to our next topic. We got the trailer for Venom: The Last Dance. This is the third and final Venom movie. It's a shame that they never figured out how to make the Spider-Man stuff work. It's funny in retrospect. I really think it's all Sony trying to make Spider-Man connections because they never really got any help in that matter either from Marvel.
They got no help. They're like, we're not giving you anything.
Yeah, which is a shame because it's like, wouldn't you want to work together and make your whole thing better? But that's besides the point. Like I will eventually get a Venom in the MCU proper, but like it's kind of a shame they couldn't do it here, right? Because looking at the trailer for Venom: The Last Dance, it's like Tom Hardy's a good Venom already. Like I can't lie, like I know, like I don't remember how we responded in part 2. I don't think I liked it as much as that first one.
No, I was not a fan of Carnage. Either.
Okay.
I liked the premise of the Venom trilogy. Like I like the buddy cop kind of monster kind of buddy kind of thing they have going there. I think
it's a fun idea. Yeah,
Hardy's doing a good job with that character and just being very weird about it, and it works. This one looks very cool. I like the vibes of this one. It has a very going back to like him and Venom just kind of in a solo adventure away from from things. So it looks fun. It is a shame, like you said, that they didn't add any Spider-Man stuff throughout the years to that thing. It was like right for the taking right there. And you had Tom Hardy in it too. It's like, you had a good actor in this thing too that, was down to fucking party pretty much,
Yeah. And, and it sucks that we never got the Venom design with the full Spider-Man on it, right? Like the full logo. Because
that's also probably branding thing too that Sony didn't want to get into.
Yeah, because like I'm playing Spider-Man 2, right? And Venom's a big part of that. And so, you see Venom in Spider-Man 2 and you're like, man, why couldn't we have this in the movie? Because it's like, and that's a shame because they were right there. And like you said, Tom Hardy's a good Venom. There's a Venom horse in here. So it's like, that
was wild.
It looks like it's gonna have fun. Like it looks like a good fun October release. We'll be looking for. It's not really spooky, but we'll be looking for fun in October. That's when we want fun around that time. So
because when we go looking for spooky in October, sometimes we
get burned.
A lot of times we
get burned
that
so
spooky,
hard.
So
so we just now it's just like it feels like less of an ask, right? To be like, yo, I just hope this movie's fun, right? It's just like I hope it's a good movie,
Listen,
but
the last time they tried to be spooky was with Exorcist Believer, and we know
yeah,
how that
we
went,
got
right?
burned. Yo,
Right?
and speaking of that, so Exorcist Believer did so poorly. I believe we spoke on it here previously about how they're not moving forward with Deceiver. They basically threw
David
out
Gordon Green
that
took his ball and went home.
yeah, like it did so poorly in the box office and with critics and with fans. Like it was just we talked about this here. We gave it a fair shot. You know,
Yeah,
there were some things to like, but
yeah.
it was mostly buried under stuff that wasn't there to like, right? Like it was, yeah.
Fair. It's fair. And listen, like I went on record. I think I gave it a 6 or something. Like I
Yeah,
liked it. I thought it was
we were
pretty
being
decent
very
for
fair, like
I thought it
very
was
fair
decent
to
for
it.
what it offered. But I cannot argue for people, trashing it because there was a lot of stuff like Tex mentioned that was not working for me either. So
Yeah, it
I
was
am
very much
glad
on that
that
border, right? Yeah,
yeah. So I
it
am
was
glad
very
that they're going out in a new direction here, especially when David Gordon Green stepped away. He was like, you know what, I'm gonna go back to comedy. I can't do
yeah,
this horror stuff anymore.
yeah.
I'm
So
good.
it was officially announced. I don't know if we mentioned it here before, but Mike Flanagan is officially doing the new Exorcist. He is teasing it as a new and exciting take, which is kind of like that doesn't tell us
It's
much
like,
because it's kind
okay,
of like
Flanagan. All right. I've seen your
yeah,
Netflix shows, all right.
and that's the thing, right? Because we talked about Flanagan before. We talked about him with
Yeah.
Netflix. We talked about him going to Prime, and now that he's doing this Exorcist movie, it's cool that he's doing a movie again, right? Like, so I like
Yes. Agreed.
positives first, right?
It's cool
Positives first.
doing a
Yeah.
movie, and we did say we wanted him to go back to an IP, right? And this
Yes.
is a
Yes.
freaking big one, right?
Yeah.
So, he has not disappointed when he's flexed his muscles with IP. Ouija: The Last Origin, or Ouija: The First Origin, or Ouija
Yeah. It's
Origins, or
last.
something. I forget,
Yeah. Something
right?
like that. Ouija
Some
2. Ouija 2, first of
Ouija
all.
too,
Yeah. Just
yes.
yeah.
He also knocked it out of the ballpark with Doctor
Oh,
Sleep. You know,
Origin of Evil. There we go. Yeah, it
yes,
was
there you
or
go.
yes,
Origin of
Ouija
Evil.
2 is a Ouija Origin of Evil.
Solid movie,
Uh
and then he
y-
did Doctor
y-
Sleep, right?
yes, Dr. Sleep was great.
Amazing, really good adaptation of that book. And now he's here, and I'm glad he's not doing anything gothic, anything based off,
You know,
a
we
novel or anything,
see okay, so that's what I was going to ask about Arturo
Yeah.
because we say that, right? But then
Imagine he goes back, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
because that's the thing, right? Because so what we've learned from Flanagan and all his shows and what he's done, and once again, like we have talked before about how we both want him to go back to an IP, but also wouldn't mind a new original from him,
Yeah.
right? Like a new because Midnight Mass is still one of the
Hush.
best.
Yep.
Midnight Hush is probably the best, one of the best movies he's made. Midnight Mass is probably the best show he's ever made, and that was
Hands down,
completely
agreed.
original.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
agreed.
so like Exorcist, it's a little complicated because like we've seen his shows and we've seen how he can turn like his whole thing is like metaphysical ghosts, right? Like it's all like it's being
Loves his ghost.
haunted by your past, right? Like he
Yeah.
loves his ghosts. So Exorcist might kind of be perfect for that. I know it's demons
But
and
listen,
Pazuzu, but like
listen.
yeah.
He did vampires very well in Midnight Mass, right? He
Right,
did slashes
right.
very well in Hush, right? He did
Yeah.
Ouija stuff, which is like the supernatural stuff, right? Not entirely possession, but it's a supernatural horror with Ouija. He knocked it out of the park, right? Um, he knows what he's doing, right?
Right.
He knows what he's doing, and it's a movie. So like we've spoken about shows and stuff like that and all that stuff. We just said that, but like this is a movie. I am hoping he does flex his muscles because he deserves to be kind of, in that spotlight again. Like I feel that his
Yeah.
name kind of lost a lot of spice behind it because of the Netflix shows. Not that they were not good. That's because when you make TV, it's different. It's very
Right.
episodic. It's long-winded.
Great point.
It's not like when you hit a movie and you're like, boom, movie hits, box office, makes money. You make your money back no matter how the budget of the movie is. That's a hit. You know what I mean? Like it's different when you have that. So he had that, and he does that with his movies. So I am very excited to see what he can do again behind the camera here, especially with The Exorcist, man.
Yeah, because the bar is so low right now. It's so low, right? Because it can't get worse than Believer. It can't be worse than that. And also, it's already starting off on a great foot because they're not telling us they're making 3 of them. They're keeping that part secret, right? Like
Yeah.
they're gonna be like, I bet when they signed on Flanagan, they're like, yo, on the side, prepare for 3 of these movies. We still want to do a trilogy, but
Well,
just
because
we won't report that to the public, you know?
yeah, but because like you mentioned when we first spoke about this, them like losing about losing David Gordon Green, that they paid so much money for the rights for this thing.
Yeah,
They
and you
want
kind of
to
have
make
to
their
do it.
money back.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
they at least would like to break even on this thing. They spent like what is it, like
Yeah.
$400 million on the rights or something
They
like
spent
that.
a lot on
Yeah, some
just the
wild
IP,
amount of money,
so
which I was
you
like,
kind of
honestly, I'd be like, why?
yeah, because when
I'm like, you can
you
make
talk
your
about it,
own Exorcist, like why?
yeah, you can make, but there is money in The Exorcist, right?
I
Because it
know,
is
I know.
one of the
Listen,
most popular horror films of all
yes,
time,
it's
right?
the one
So
that still freaks people out. Like if you talk to people who are in their 40s, going in their 50s, who were in who were like able to go to a movie theater when that came out, they still tell you, yo, that's the scariest thing I've ever seen.
and
So like, for
and you
sure.
believe it, right? Because
Yeah.
if you watch it with present day eyes, you probably won't be like as impressed. But when you look at it, I don't know, it's still like a very good drama. Like it's still
Even
like a
then,
very
even present day, like the practical effects and how far um they went with the rigging of the of the harnesses and stuff
yeah.
on Blair. You see all that, so that's all practical. Like all that shit's practical. Like
It's
there's no
impressive.
computer
Like
graphics there. Like you see them getting banged around and flipping around. That's them, like them or a stunt double just being thrown around like that. Like
you
it
know,
looks good still, you know.
yeah, Flanagan has to bring that energy back. Like it's got to be like that classic energy. So I guess we'll see. And like you said, like they kind of have to do this regardless. Like they had to figure out some way to keep making Exorcist movies. And so, we'll get a reboot probably. We'll probably get a new version of Reagan because it's like you're paying for the rights, you're paying for the name, you're paying for the, like, even Believer couldn't go without
You know
saying
what though?
Reagan's name like 20
Yeah,
times,
like if they have that stuff, just reboot it all together, like
Just
make it
do
a
a new one,
modern
right?
day Exorcist. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I would not have any issues with them retelling the same story, just updated to 2024 times. There's cell
Yeah.
phones and Teslas driving around. You know what I mean? Like, so like
Yeah, just amp it up, right? Just
yeah,
amp
like
up
I
the
think
demon stuff.
I think
Yeah.
that can work because if you do something right like that, and Flanagan has proven he can make a really good adaptation, I think it'll be successful. But only time will tell. We have no word as to when that's going to be released or when it's going to start shooting. But when it does, we will talk about it here on the Morgue. Next up, our feature presentation, folks. Welcome back, and we have our feature presentation for you guys. It's the one, the only, In a Violent Nature. It is the indie darling of the horror community, and for me, Tex, just to put it right out there, it is a stay away from it. What with it, because there's gonna be a lot of breaking down this movie. So I'm just gonna say off the bat, it's a stay away from it, and I will tell you exactly why. Tex, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Just real quick, pay for it is go pay to see it as soon as possible. Wait for it is wait. You can wait to see it on streaming. You won't miss any of the conversation, and stay away from it. Self-explanatory. And I'm also in the stay away from it camp. I'm even in the, so I will add an asterisk to it, to the stay away from it, in that if you have a Shudder subscription, because this is a Shudder original, so unfortunately, I did not know that going in. So seeing the Shudder title card in the movie, I was like,
You're
oh
like,
no.
oh,
I was like, oh, this makes so much
okay, I
sense.
get it. I
Yeah,
get
so
it.
so they're there is the asterisk of if you have a Shudder subscription, you're a big horror fiend. Maybe that's why you're, checking us out here at the Morgue. You will eventually see In a Violent Nature. So see it when it's eventually on Shudder. But I will say just stay away from it. Just a blanket.
And if you are going to go see it, go check out the Scary World spoiler-free review of In a Violent Nature. It's out now on YouTube. Go like, subscribe, and share over there. Because we will be spoiling the hell out of this thing here. And we're going to make you cry if you like this movie. Sorry.
Yes, no, totally. Like now we're getting into the spoiler alerts here. Like, final time, please check out the spoiler-free review that Arturo has in Scary World, because this is not it.
Yeah, this is not it. This is definitely not it. I get very candid about the movies here. This is why the shows are very different. So if you want something without the spoiler stuff, go check out Scary World, and then you can come right back here and give us a like and a rate and a review. And here we go. So Tex, I for one. Going into this, you know me, I'm a horror guy, and I was excited. I was excited about this. I was like, yo, I really haven't seen a movie with this perspective before.
You kept this on my radar. Like, this was a movie I totally forgot was coming out.
Yeah, like, it was like, it's something that I was like, why hasn't anyone thought about this, Like, yes, you have movies like Maniac, which have that, first-person POV through the eyes. You hear their breathing and stuff, just like in in Harry, Portrait of a Serial Killer as well. You have that, like, oh, I'm gonna be in their eyes stuff. You see it in the Giallo stuff with Argento as well, all that Italian horror stuff. You get that perspective, but this was different because this was the perspective of an invincible like slasher a la Jason, who wakes up in the beginning of every movie and just starts killing, right? I was like, holy shit, it's brilliant. Why hasn't this been done before, Tex? And we found out exactly why. We found out why this has not been done before, because it is so boring. Like, oh my goodness. Like I was super curious, like, oh my God, I wonder what the killer's doing. Nothing. A whole lot of nothing. That's the problem here, that there is a whole lot of nothing happening. Just to put it aside, I'm just gonna tell you before I keep breaking down like all the negative stuff. The killer itself, Johnny, right? Like, the killer was good.
Like the positives, right?
Yes,
like the positives.
I liked Johnny. I liked the concept of Johnny. I liked the concept that they had here. My issue was with the lack of story and the poor editing of this movie, right? I said in my Scary World review that if this thing was cut down drastically, you would have had the same movie, but just a better watch because it's shorter. You have tons and tons of fucking cuts of this guy just walking through the forest, and I'm like, okay, cool. One person I follow on Instagram, right? He put it as like, it sounds like a freaking ASMR, video, and that's like, I'm like, that. Yes, that's exactly what it was. I'm so sorry. I forgot to credit him. I forgot who he was, but yes, you said that. It's so true. Like, it does feel like you're just watching an ASMR video. And it's
yes.
It's I'm sorry. It was the folks over at In Love with Horror. They mentioned that, and I absolutely agree that yes, that it was just like watching a nature video, and like I did not sign up for that. Like, I'm just very disappointed because it came down to also the lack of story, right? So the entire premise of this movie, folks, was these campers or these people who were in the woods, they find this locket that's supposedly on some fire tower, but you never get that visual. You never understand what you're seeing except like a broken down shed, right? In the middle of the of the woods, but it's supposed to be a fire tower, which is like, okay, whatever. But these people steal this locket, which apparently was, keeping Johnny dead in the ground. Cool. I'm fine with that. That's slasher shit. I'm cool with that. But then, like, we get the Johnny stuff, and we get the Johnny going and walking and getting his steps in on his Fitbit, right? Then, like, you don't get any action. Like, the action is very sporadic, and it's, like, very minimal. And when you do get it, yeah, cool. Like, a couple of the kills are very impressive. Yes, I have to say that. They look very cool. And I was like, oh, that's dope, you know? But it just seems like that was all they had in mind when it came to making this a package, right, Tex?
Yeah, I think that is also my biggest critique with it too, because it's like, so you never really think about, oh, how does Jason get from point A to point B, right? You never really think about it because it's in slasher movies, it's not really important, right? And so the experiment of this movie was, what if we made it important? What if we
Yes.
made Johnny, what if we made the killer itself important, the monster important, which in concept, right? On paper, you're
On
like,
paper.
as a horror fan, you're like, wow, like you said, Arturo, you're like, that's a very intriguing idea to
Mhm.
take the monster and give it character, to make it the actual star of the thing. But in practice, it's so not interesting because, you know, it turns out that, yeah, we really don't care about the point A to point B. We really
Yeah.
don't want to see Jason walking from point A to point B.
I
And
thought I did. I don't anymore.
yeah, and what's the shame about Johnny? So the positives, right? Going back to what you said about the positives, the killer himself, they crafted like an interesting enough story. Like it was a very, like, it's very loose, it's very like slasher-esque, and it fits. It fits the mold of the killer himself.
Yeah.
Johnny, just a big lumbering undead Jason-like figure. He's got like an old classic fire mask on, which is, it's a good look. And
Yeah.
when you
It's
see
unique.
him without, when you see it without the mask, it's a good look too. It's very Jason undead kind of look, right?
Mhm.
And so the only thing about that is that it sucks because there are like developments where I really liked, where you get hints of intelligence from Johnny, right? You get some funny, goofy stuff as a result. Like when he's like getting the fire mask out of like the display case and he like throws a dead body at it to like
Yeah, that
break
was
the
great.
case.
I love
And
that.
it's a
Yeah.
cool move, right?
Yeah.
And then there are other little intelligence beats later where he's like, he sets off like a car horn intentionally. Like you see him pick up a stick and like
Yeah, it
set
just
a
yeah,
car
and
horn
prop
to
it up
lure
properly.
someone
Yeah.
outside.
Yep.
Yeah, so like to like lure somebody outside, which is a super cool, like when you're watching it, like when I was watching it, I was like, wow, that's an interesting move because you would never see like Jason bother to do that stuff, right?
Yeah,
Like you never see
but
him
then like
lure somebody out, right?
but then you see that situation happening in slashers where all of a sudden there's a car horn going off and you're wondering what the hell happened, right?
Yeah, and
And
it's
this is
cool.
exactly and this is exactly what happens.
And it's cool seeing that, like, it's, that's what
Yeah.
I'm saying, like there are the positives in the idea where it's cool seeing that a killer, a monster has this level of
Yeah,
intelligence,
agreed.
has this level of thought, but the only thing missing is the character. And this is where it leads back to what you're saying, Arturo, where because of the structure, there's no real story to Johnny himself, which is
Mhm.
the biggest mistake in this thing. It's
Yeah.
because we spend so much time watching him walk from one place to another, and to the point where like it's not even a single take either. It's not even like a
It's
single, we're
not.
not
It's cut
watching a
after cut
single,
after
yes,
cut
it's
after
cut
cut.
after, just to teleport him a little bit further and further, right? Because it's like, if you're going to dedicate time to him walking, make that the movie, right? Like honestly,
Yeah.
if this were just a single, I know it would have been impossible. You know, you could have your cuts here and there, but if it really would have been just us watching him walk and
Yeah, just
kill,
a tracking shot of freaking Johnny's back the entire time while he does his thing.
yeah,
That would have been cool because that's the perspective. But that's another issue this movie has.
yeah, because it
That
doesn't commit
it
to that, right? Like
exactly.
it starts
Yep.
cutting away. It starts like introducing the slasher victim characters in every movie. You know, it's the group of kids or young adults, or I don't even know their ages. They're pretty like adult-esque by that point. Um, just having their campfire talk, talking about the legend of Johnny. It was very slasher movie-esque, but then we have to like focus on them for a while
Terrible.
instead of like seeing it all through John. Like I know it wouldn't have been visually interesting as a movie, but that would have been the point. We would have been watching Johnny watch them, and just it would have been this ominous thing of like
Because
watching them, right?
that's the point though, right? Text like
Yes,
that we
yes,
signed up for. We signed up for okay, we know we are going to be following this guy walking, right? Doing what he needs
yes,
to do, killing, even taking a piss, whatever he needs to do, we're going to be following him. But then we committed to that premise, but then you kind of give us too much walking. All right, whatever, right? But then you kind of decide, okay, let's focus on these people. Completely change the POV, right? Go
Yeah.
go into the go completely like into the characters and their like hangout and what they're doing.
Whatever
It's
their
like,
little drama is, right? They're
yeah,
like
I'm like, yo, Johnny's
infighting and
not
whatever.
here. Like, Johnny's not here. We do not care about your freaking drama. Like, we care about what Johnny is doing around the back of the house. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
he's apparently watching them from like afar or whatever, but it's also like the thing with that is like, what does that mean to Johnny, right? Like why this is also the thing too, is like, why is he waiting? Like, we never get that. Like, yes, it's slasher movie monster uh etiquette, I guess is the word, because it's like you got to wait to the moment in the slasher movie for the monster to make
Yeah.
its move, right?
Yeah.
But in this, when we're seeing through Johnny's perspective, there's not enough explanation or character put in as to why, like, he's waiting to make his move and why he's waiting to like attack them, why he's waiting, right? We never get a like, and it sucks too, because there are bits of like a weird explanation, like for the locket you mentioned, right?
Yes.
There's a scene where Johnny's like looking around for the locket, and then there's like a weird flashback within a mirror that he's looking at of his dad going, "Well, this was your mom's locket. You got to hold it with you. It'll
Yes.
protect you," right?
What
And so,
terrible, terrible thing. And it sucks because that happened so early in the movie, too.
and what sucks too is that it only happens once, and I would have accepted that as an idea if this was just Johnny's mind.
If they
You know what I
continue to be
mean?
like, Johnny, do you have your mother's locket? Johnny, do you know where the locket?
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
something
Yes.
driving him to find this freaking locket, right? That like,
Yes.
you know how like it Jason it stops after I think 5 or 6 or something. I forget where, but
But he hears his mom's voice, right?
he hears his mom's voice for a long time, like in part 2, especially when he's first, getting in the game. That's all that drives him is his mom. He has his mom's freaking head in a shrine. You know what I mean? Like that's all that drives Jason because that's all he knows. Like here we don't get any exposition on Johnny besides that like accident that happened. But even then, it's very like confusing because it's like, wait a minute, but Johnny's an adult. It sounds like you're talking about but kid,
Yeah, and
and I don't
he's an adult
understand that.
he's an adult who's come back like in like every 10 years or something like that to like murder. And it's also like, how did that become the curse? How did that? And
What?
it would have been fine, like I said, if we saw little images of his dad and his mom throughout the movie, right? But once again, this is all through,
Yeah.
if we would have just stayed with his perspective, which is something the movie doesn't commit to. Instead, it's kind of like, it plays out like a slasher movie side story, right? Like, this is like, Friday the 13th A, this is Friday the 13th B. This is what Jason was doing while, while the
This
campers
is
were
Friday the
like,
13th, the series. It's the one you
yeah,
got on
it's like,
Sci-Fi Channel.
it's like, this is what he's doing while they're doing this, right? And it's also like, yeah, but all, and then it because of that, like, when we get the kills, so let's talk about the kills, right? So, you talk about the positives there, and I agree 1000%. Me, I'm not I'm not gore for gore's sake, but the stuff we get here is, there are fun kills in this. There's like a full-on Mortal Kombat fatality.
Yeah,
It's
it's
just
freaking awesome.
the only thing about it is that because this movie's so serious about
Is that that's
itself,
the only thing about it.
yeah, there's no fun. Like, there's no, like, it's missing that impact that a slasher movie would give. Like, you don't get like hard cut music, you don't get like the stings. It's a Mortal Kombat fatality to like dead silence. Like, it's just the
Yeah.
sounds of the forest. And
Yeah.
to me, that's not a fun experience. Like, I'm looking at a really rowdy kill, and it's so rowdy that like I keep calling it a Mortal Kombat fatality because it is goofy. Like, it's goofy in the way it's done, right? Like, he like sticks a hook in her head and like kind of, what does he do?
Yeah,
Like, pulls it out.
Yep. So he sticks a hook in her head. So he has this hook on a chain. It has 2 hooks on either end, and it's connected with a chain. So he hooks her head, right? And
Uh-huh.
then he brings the other hook underneath her legs. No, I'm sorry. He punches a hole through her
Yeah,
chest
we missed that
with
part
the
first.
hook.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry, folks. He punches a hole through her chest with the hook, right? And the hook attaches. So imagine if you guys are watching, right? I'm punching through my chest, and then the hook grabs right on my forehead there. So then, because it's attached to a chain going through my hole in the chest, he pulls the chain from behind and completely drags the whole neck down into the
There we
hole.
go.
And it
Yes.
was just absolutely like, whoa, I've never seen anything
Yeah.
in my life like that. And that's absolutely great. But
Dead silence. Like there's no music stings.
that's
There's
it.
no like it's that's what I mean. Like it's missing the pomp and the circumstance of a slasher movie, right? So you're watching it, you're like, oh, that's a kill, but you're not going, oh, you're not really celebrating it. You're not really like, as a horror fan, you're not like really fully enjoying it because it's just like we're watching this kill for a long time. And it's the same with another torture kill he does where it's like he breaks a guy's spine and then takes him to like
Yes.
a log cutter. And he tests it on a log, then he cuts the guy's arm off, then he cuts the guy's head off while the guy's still like paralyzed and like completely alive and stuff.
Feeling everything, which is brutal.
Brutal stuff. But also it's like
okay.
Like it feels very kind of meh almost.
Because they're so spaced out, it doesn't help either.
Yeah, that too.
And the stuff in the middle, like, all right, so in slasher movies, you get your kills, right? And in between those kills, there's story going along. Like,
there's usually something, right?
Yes, there's stuff actually progressing plots, whether it's A, B, or C plots. There's stuff in the background moving shit along, right? There's nothing like that here, and that's the problem. In between the kills and him walking, there's nothing moving along any story. Like, we don't get any more exposition about him hearing his parents and the locket. It'd be cool to at least have that as a kind of sound like drop every time he's walking. He hears his mom. Like, I don't care if it resembles Jason. It's just something that's driving him. We don't get that at all.
Yeah, and the only bits of more story is when he happens to see them talking out loud about like whatever's going on, right? Like they're at the ranger station and they're like, and the ranger's like, oh, you've taken the locket, now he's gonna come and kill us all. And that's when he's walking forward, and it's like it's very hard to care about anyone too. And that's the thing, it's like you can't have it's the cake and eat it too kind of problem where it's like you can't also put a slasher movie in this. You have to either be a character study about a monster killer, or you're a slasher movie where we're supposed to care about the surviving humans, right?
Yeah, because they have the fucking nerve at the end, Tex, to give us a final girl. Like the worst final girl in history.
Which I did not
terrible
think the
actress.
final girl.
I'm sorry, you're a terrible actress. All the actors in this movie were terrible. I'm sorry, guys. I hope this is your first. I hope this is your first try. You'll get better. I promise.
Yeah, usually we try to be more positive about acting, right? And we're like, oh, maybe it's bad material, but like it's kind of like a column A, column B,
both,
here, right? Yeah, it really is
bad
both.
material with bad actors, but like this is why this kind of made it to the screen, in my opinion. A very low budget, right?
Yeah.
You probably have very brand new actors in here.
It's very Shudder. It's very Shudder. Once you put it back in that little box, right?
It's but then to the defense of Shudder, I've seen quality from them.
Yes, they do have.
For instance, for those who have not seen it yet, go check out Stop Motion on Shudder. It just dropped on Shudder. It is one of my favorite horror movies of the year. It was my favorite horror movie of the year until First Omen showed up. Go watch Stop Motion. Highly recommend it. Really good story. Really good production, good acting. But this is what I was talking about. Like, not every Shudder movie has bad acting. This, I think, because of the budget and what they wanted to do, they put their money elsewhere. And I think this is kind of why it made it to the screen, because it was not, a low risk kind of high reward situation for the studios, in my opinion. With word of mouth, especially in the horror community, things can catch fire. You know, it can go
And like
viral.
this one did. Yeah.
Like a Late Night with the Devil, for instance, right? People like, oh my god, best thing since sliced bread and all that shit. But same thing here, right? Indie darling, you know, and all this other stuff with the, oh, you gotta go see it. You got like I saw it. I'm good, you know.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
that's, and going back to the ending, it goes back to like traditional slasher movie stuff. And it's like, well, I didn't think the final girl rule would apply here, because it's
it
because the
shouldn't have.
final girls are like, they're important because we see them develop over the course of the movie, right? And
Yeah,
we get their entire story, and so when they survive, it's usually like, just on a base understanding of the final girl, it's a big victory, it's a big
yeah,
win, because she managed to survive the horror, right? And you reward, in greater terms, you reward actresses who can really pull that off, right? You're like,
mhm,
when you see a good final girl actress, you're like, man, hope she pops up in other stuff, right? And
yep,
that's the thing, that's how good of a position it could place you. But in a movie like this, when the main character is supposed to be the killer, I
Johnny's the
did not.
final boy.
Yeah, like that's what it is. Like his story doesn't really get to end. Like,
It doesn't
there's
end, dude.
there's an
It's
implication that, like, that he gets his locket because the final girl in question, sees her, whatever the dude was to her, get killed when he tries to distract him, and gets immediately like axed
he
in the
gets
face,
killed
like,
too. He gets
yeah,
gratuitously killed.
yeah, and she's like so shocked by it, she just kind of leaves the locket and forgets whatever plan she was gonna do to like kill him or whatever. And then you see a shot where the locket would have been, but it's missing. So the implication is, oh, Johnny got the locket and went home, I guess. But
But doesn't that locket like put him to sleep or something? I don't know.
yeah, and then also, shouldn't we have seen that? Like, that's the thing. It's the movie cuts away. It starts following
It's
the final
about
girl.
Johnny. It's like, I'm Johnny. Don't throw to Johnny. I'm Johnny. Right?
Yeah, and
Like that was the way they did it. It's like, no, I'm Johnny. Cut away from Johnny. I don't want any of this
yeah,
shit, you
and
know?
like we spend like the last 10, it feels like 10-15 minutes. It feels like a long time that we're
We
in
spent
the
too
ending.
much, too
Yeah,
much
where
time. And
she's
again,
like, she gets rescued and she's in like a car with somebody, and the lady's like giving
terrible.
this like monologue, basically like talking to her about like a bear. And I was
And
sitting
she
there
was
going,
sus to
okay,
that lady. I'm like, oh, is she Johnny's mom? Right?
yeah, that's what
Like,
I was leading to. I was like, is it laying it on so thick because she's gonna take her right to Johnny or something, right?
yeah.
Like, I thought it was
Yeah.
so like, yeah, like it was laid
Oh
on
man.
so thick that like I thought that's what the twist was. But then it ends and it's like, oh, okay.
It's like,
So
yeah, it's like,
uh,
who are you again? Why are you talking to her like a motherly figure and stuff like
yeah,
that?
and then also when you look at the final girl and it like ends on her, right? And it's also like, I'm looking at it going, well, who are you, right?
Yeah,
Where it's
she's
like, well,
terrible. She's
where it's like,
terrible.
who is?
And then they also end on a shot of like her looking into the forest. There's nothing there, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing there at all. At least you should have had Johnny there. But then again, like you break your promise, right? Like
Yeah,
you
yes. This
break
is
the
all back to
promise of
that
the
central
premise,
promise.
right?
Yeah.
Your premise is we're gonna follow our slasher throughout the movie. You broke your promise halfway through the movie. You got bored with your own concept and decided to
Yes.
explore the other things. They were probably writing the script and they were like writing, like, damn, it's a lot of writing about him walking. It's like, oh, this character is kind of interesting. Let me see if I can do something about this relationship that no one gives a fuck about, dude. No one gives a shit about whatever boyfriend girlfriend quarrel they had. Like, no one
I don't
cares.
even remember the dynamic, what the
Terrible,
issue was. Because
terrible, dude.
you kind of half hear it, and then also
Yeah,
it's just, it doesn't
it's
matter.
weird
Because
because at first, like the guy talks to the other guy, like he slept with his girlfriend, right? But then that's not the case because he went through some trauma or something. I think
yeah, I also
parents
thought it was
died or
her.
somebody passed
Yeah,
away.
I was
I
like,
don't
I
know,
thought it was her brother or something, right?
dude.
Like,
It
I
was
was,
terrible.
and
I'm
that's the
glad he
thing.
got killed the way he did, though.
Yeah, and like, you watch this, and all of that would have been like, honestly, I would have forgave it if it stuck to its central idea. If we
Yeah,
just stayed behind Johnny and he was just watching their conversation, like I said, yeah, it wouldn't have been that visually interesting, but it would
That's
have been honestly, it would have
that's
been
the
artistic,
concept,
right?
right?
Yeah,
That's the
like
concept.
it,
Like you've made so many. That's a great way to put it, Tex. You've made so many artistic choices in this movie, right? But then you're
yeah,
just gonna throw it all away for what? For
for
nothing,
what?
because you had
For
no real
nothing.
story to tell. You know,
Yeah, and we
no
didn't
real
get
story to
Johnny's
tell.
ending at all. Like you know, it's like you've been following this monster for like the whole movie, and we don't even get like a conclusion to him. And I get that's the slasher movie thing, but like in slasher movies, we get a conclusion to the monster at
In
least,
slasher
right?
movies, we also get a final fight with the final girl. We never
Yeah,
got that here. She ran away when things got tough. He was like, you know what? I'm good. While he's pounding away at the carcass of my ex-boyfriend or whoever this guy is to me, I'm just gonna slip away and run away. Like I definitely thought that was gonna be like wherein he came out of nowhere all of a sudden, right? And
right.
did his slasher thing. But no, that's the last visual we get of Johnny is him just pounding away at a dead body over and over again. But like that would be cool if we stayed there because it showed some kind of, thought process in him because he killed the guy, right? And then he was like, you know what? I'm just gonna keep killing him, even though he's dead. Like there was some things here that could have been mined for some
Yes.
uniqueness. Like for instance, Tex brought up earlier in the segment about him and his thought process about Johnny and his humanity and how he thinks. There was a scene where there was a toy car attached to a keychain, and he picks it up because I get that's he's because there was a story there that when he was a kid, he was playing with toys, toy cars, and all that stuff. But then, like, you start thinking hard about it, and you're like, wait a minute, that makes no sense. How old are you? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so that becomes a problem. But also, there's things here that should have been focused on, like Johnny and the way he sees the world. Like, I really enjoyed this one scene where he's walking and then he just stops at like this like the carcass of like a rotting, forest animal or something. He's just looking at it and he's like, he kicked it, kind of like playing with it. He lightly kicked it. And I'm like, you see, that's good slasher character fucking,
Yeah.
psyche shit, like you're kicking a dead animal. Cool. I want to see more of that. But no, we got him
Yeah,
just
and
walking
yeah,
and walking and
yes.
walking.
And there are cool uses of that idea too, where he's like the lake kill is probably one of my favorites because he just
Yeah,
walks into the water, right? And it's
but
like,
but
yo,
you see,
like
but you see, he's doing something. He's doing an action. He stopped because he hears people, and he instead of walking, where he's like, "Oh, I heard something. Let me act." Right? Because that's what
yes.
these things do. They're called animals and monsters. That's what they do. They just react, and that's what he was doing. He was walking with his hook and his axe and shit, and then he hears two girls cracking up across the pond. Oh,
Yeah,
turn
and it's
around.
and it's a fun use of that, right?
It's
Yeah,
great. He
like
drops the axe. He's like, "Oh, I can't bring the axe into the water." Drops the axe, just walks right into the water, which is like, yes, that's exactly what we need here. More of that. Have him walking into the water, walking into sheds to surprise people, like walking, like just like make the walk with a purpose. Like give him a
there, you know what?
a
There we
destination
go.
point. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
there you go. That's the key because there's so much aimless walking in this. There's so much
Yeah.
aimless walking. But if you're right, if it felt the entire time that he was walking with the purpose, because yeah, his overall purpose was finding the locket, but there weren't enough of, like you said, those moments where he's like actively trying to get
Yes.
from point A to
There's a
point B,
great
right?
moment too at first where he's dragging a body with him. And you're like, yes, I want to see that. I want to see what the killers do with the bodies because they're always gone. They're always positioned somewhere else. Let me see that. And we see that. And then that's it. We don't see that anymore. So there's like ideas here to really develop this concept of this POV thing that could really work. Yes, it will not be the most entertaining thing, but if you really do it well, and you make it, shorter than an hour and a half for sure, this
Yeah,
could
like
have
a
worked
solid
out better,
80
man.
minutes. Yeah, like a
Dude,
solid 80
not
minutes would have
even.
been good.
Give me 75 minutes. All right, give me
You know what?
75
And
minutes.
there's nothing
In and
wrong with
out,
that
bro.
because
That's it.
a
In and
lot of
out.
the early, yeah, like Friday 13th was what, like 70, 80 minutes, right? Like it was,
79, 78 minutes, something like that. But like
yeah.
in and
So
out. You
like
see, like in and
that's
out. Just tell me
perfect.
the fucking story and go out. Go in,
Yeah,
tell me the story, goodbye, leave. All right. Like here
yeah,
we have nothing. So it makes it very hard to watch because there's nothing going on. A lot of aimless walking going on. I'm not sure how people are like praising this thing as like, oh my god,
I don't get
it's
it either.
like, listen, I'm glad you enjoyed the movie,
Some
you
people
know,
are
but I
so
don't get it.
distracted by it. They're so distracted by violence and gory kills and like well done kills. And
But
I
they're
get
like,
it.
but they're like 5 of them, and they're all spread out within, you know, throughout the 90 minutes of this movie, bro.
And not even
Like, you
spread
know,
out.
like,
Two of them are one after one another. And
oh, the good
like
ones, right? The good ones, right? Yeah.
yeah, like it's just kind of I don't know. I'm done.
Yeah. So that there you have it, folks.
Yeah.
In a Violent Nature, dropping on Shudder, I believe this month in June. Go
Yeah.
watch that. I know you horror fans will still watch it regardless of what we
Yeah,
say
like
here.
if you have that's why it's the asterisk, right? We say stay away from it. Don't see it in theaters. If you have a Shutter subscription already, then see it. It's not one to
but
get one for, right? Like
don't
it's
say
not one,
we didn't warn you. You're gonna want
yeah.
your 90 minutes back, all right? Because you could have easily watched like all this stuff on YouTube clips or something, because like
Yeah.
there's so little of the movie that actually matters that it's like there's no reason to watch all of
Yeah,
it.
if you want
Yeah.
gore, go pull up like a Faces of Death VHS or something. Like if you just want death, but
Yeah, dude. If you
yeah,
want
man,
something like if you want something like this, go watch what Tex is watching right now, the original Friday the 13th.
yeah,
See what
honestly, yeah,
really
just watch
makes a
Friday the
killer
13th.
and what drives
Yeah.
a killer. Go
Yeah.
watch some Jason shit, dude. Jesus. Man, this movie was disappointing, Tex. I really had high hopes for this one, man. Horror had high hopes for this one. And
Yeah.
as Eric Draven once said, it can't rain all the time, you know?
Right. You're right.
Anyways, folks, thank you for watching and listening. This has been episode 195 of the Morgue, the official CorpseFeed podcast. I am Arturo Padilla, the guy behind the face. And with me always is Mr. Nick Valdez. A big shout out goes to Delvirus for all of the artwork he's done and provided to us throughout the years. And a big shout out goes to you guys for listening. We have 194 of these things for you guys everywhere and anywhere you get your podcast streams. Go like, subscribe, and share on all those platforms. Please drop some stars and some reviews. We would highly appreciate it. Go over to YouTube and hit the subscribe button on CorpseFeed. We have horror movie reviews for you guys, spoiler-free, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And we have the Morgue dropping every Tuesday for you guys on there as well. We are also on all the socials. Go like, subscribe, and share over there. And remember, folks, it is a scary world out there, but we are here to walk you through it.